Welcome to the Little Garden in Sedona's text class, where close reading of A Course in Miracles brings rich rewards. Also, check out our live interactive workbook classes on Zoom and our 30-day retreats at the Little Garden. Okay, so today we're doing the denial of God in A Course in Miracles. It's section 5 in chapter 10 in this version. Oh, don't pay attention to that little smiley face, but this version here.
And mine too, the original.
Okay.
We have our original notes.
We have notes from 22 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a long section, but it seems to be very cohesive. So if we keep on noticing the theme being brought up and reiterated in slightly different ways, we'll be able to finish it, I'm pretty sure, in one sitting. So, Connie, let's have you start. And please give us all your good thoughts along with it.
The denial of God. The rituals of the god of sickness are strange and very demanding. Joy is never permitted, for depression is the sign of allegiance to him. Boy, I got that. Depression means that you have forsworn God. Many are afraid of blasphemy, but they do not understand what it means. They do not realize that to deny God is to deny their own identity. And in this sense, the wages of sin is death. I get that denying God is denying who you are. And in this sense, the wages of sin is death. The sense is very literal. Denial of life perceives its opposite. That sentence explains the sentence before. So they're talking about being separate from God is like being dead.
Like being dead, yeah.
Yeah. In the sense that we know it in this body, death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Depression, doesn't that feel like death?
Yeah. The sense is very literal. Denial of life perceives its opposite, as all forms of denial replace what is with what is not. No one can really do this, but you think you can and believe you have is beyond dispute. So again, that's saying that I've just forgotten the truth.
Yeah.
And I'm believing that, this whole denial of what the truth is has left me with depression and separateness.
And sickness.
Yep.
So 1:4, what is the typical understanding of blasphemy? Is like seeking your own pleasure, seeking your own, what you want to do instead of what God wants you to do?
I always think
violating God's will.
I always think of blasphemy as some kind of a blast at God. Now, maybe that's not what it is, but it seems like it's a really an assault on God. You get that same sense, Connie?
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah. So when I read through this, that word blasphemy just seemed to be way too strong for me to even take in what was going on.
Well,
but he's got a lot of synonyms for it.
Okay, well, the point I wanted to make is he's trying to draw out this opposite, that suffering is blasphemy.
Yes.
Whereas normally we think blasphemy is just going on our own way. That's from the Bible. The wages of sin is death, right? But blasphemy seems to be, I want to do it my own way, or I don't want to do what God wants me to do. Isn't that the typical idea of blasphemy?
I think we should have looked it up.
Okay.
Anybody else have a thought about the meaning, the usual meaning of blasphemy?
Well, when I looked it up, it said blasphemy is a religious sense, it refers to a great disrespect shown to God or to someone holy or to something said or done that shows this kind of, oops, the end. But
Great
yeah,
great
because people used to,
disrespect.
during Jesus's time, that was a punishable death. That was punishable.
Yeah,
It comes to me a sense of insulting God, like that's even
Yeah.
possible.
yes,
You know, it's just a
Right.
ridiculous statement saying blasphemy against God, because it's like you can't. It's not a thing.
yeah. He's
I
gonna
had
keep,
I had a minister 35 years ago when I went to him for counseling, told me that what we're doing right now
yeah.
is the most severe form of blasphemy, and
Uh-huh.
told me to drop to my knees and pray for forgiveness, which is not what I needed to hear at the time, by the way. But
Yeah,
you know,
Yeah.
if you come from that fundamentalist church background like I did, this type of thought is considered blasphemy.
right. Yeah, okay, so he's using it as a synonym for the denial of God. And it includes depression, and I'm just doing the first paragraph here. Depression and denying our own identity, denying who we really are. We're not only denying God, we're denying who we really are as an extension of
Right,
God.
but here's the thing with this whole idea is suffering is seen as purification that gets us to salvation.
Mhm.
Because you suffer, because you're
Yeah.
in pain, because Jesus suffered for us, now we're saved. And what this is saying is suffering is the blasphemy.
Yes,
Pain is the blasphemy.
Yeah.
And that's what we don't see. A little bit of pain is denying who we are. And it's
Right.
denying God. That's why he put that sentence 4 in there, is so we understand what we normally think.
mhm,
A blasphemy is just that we think that pain and suffering is just natural to life
yeah, right,
from the ego standpoint. That's why it's so important to get the dichotomy here.
right. Any other thoughts on that first paragraph?
The word forsworn. Depression means you have forsworn God. It means it agreed to give up.
Mm,
Yeah.
And again, you don't think of it as that, do you? Think if you're depressed, it's like, can't help it, something's making me depressed.
yeah,
But
Yeah.
it's an agreement to give up God.
yeah.
Wow.
And something we've done, it's not something God did. He didn't forswear us.
No.
Yeah,
And give up our own true sense of who we are.
right,
Mm.
exactly.
Yeah, it's all separateness and not acknowledging who I am, like
Right,
Yep.
Ian said, it's the truth.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
And that makes sense because the opposite of depression is joy and peace. And when I know who I am, that's when I'm with God, that's what's there.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And when I'm not, it's depression or sickness or suffering.
Mhm. Kathy, would you like to read 2?
Certainly. Do not forget, however, that to deny God would inevitably result in projection, and you will believe that others and not yourself have done this to you. You must receive the message you give because it is the message you want. So you see what you want to see. You may believe that you judge your brothers by the messages they give you, but you have judged them by the messages you give them to them. Do not attribute your denial of joy to them, or you cannot see the spark in them that would bring joy to you. It is the denial of the spark that brings depression. For whenever you see your brothers without it, you are denying God. So it's all in our heads. One more time. And then when you, let's see, deny God will inevitably result in projection. So there it is again.
So the spark is a reference to the paragraph just before this section. Paragraph 8, in only many the spark remains, for the
Mhm.
great rays are
Rays.
obscured.
Mhm.
So there is a spark that we can see in others.
Right,
And this reflects the true great rays of God.
yeah. their real identity.
That's what we still have left, is a spark, which means a little bit of understanding of the truth of who they are, a little bit of joy,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of peace. That's the spark.
Anything
As you
else?
like
talk about the spark, I visualize that there's always this little, like on the merry-go-round, the ring, you can reach it. It's
Yeah.
like if I only grab for that, then I'll be pulled back into who I am and peace and joy versus
Mhm.
depression.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
good metaphor instead
Yeah.
of going round and round and round.
line 3, you believe that you judge your brothers by the messages they give you, but you have judged them by the message you give to them. It's like it's all in our control.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's just so in your face.
And as it's been saying so many times, our power. We have the power to lift ourselves and others out of depression, sickness, sadness, and everything else that's not of God. By changing our minds, by taking, first of all, taking responsibility. I must have given them that message if they're giving that to me. If they're telling me I'm worthless, it's because I want to hear that. From my subconscious mind, it was projected. And here it is. And if I want to hear the message that God is everywhere and in everything, if that's my conscious choice, that's what I'll see no matter what. And it may be a call for love.
Yeah. It's sort of indicative of that third lesson, be vigilant only for God and his kingdom. So to look for the spark in another is to have an understanding of them that's part of their true nature. So there may be 100 things I see of what I think is wrong with them, but to focus on one thing about them as good is a lot of what he says forgiveness is just focus on this little spark.
And let go of everything else.
Like my friend said, the thing she liked about her ex-husband was he always took out the garbage. And that helped her.
Helped her to forgive him.
Yeah, helped her but just finding something to love about them and appreciate is what he's talking about in that spark, that appreciation is love. It is understanding.
I was just going to make a comment. It just made me think of something we've already read in chapter 5 under the Guide to Salvation. In paragraph 3, sentence 5, what you acknowledge in your brother, you are acknowledging in yourself, and what you share your strength in. And then goes on to paragraph 4, basically saying that the Holy Spirit is weak in us, and the only way to strengthen it is to see it in others.
Right.
Yeah.
And acknowledge it. And that's how we strengthen the voice of God in ourselves. So it just reminded me of that section that we had already read.
That's a good point. And that's what this section is going to come around to also. It's like we want to recognize God, and the way to do it is by seeing it in each other.
Yeah. That's a good reference. Thank you.
So Laura, would you read 3 for us, please?
Oh, sure. Okay. Allegiance to the denial of God is the ego's religion. The God of sickness obviously demands the denial of health because health is in direct opposition to its own survival. But consider what this means to you. Unless you are sick, you cannot keep the God you made, for only in sickness could you possibly want them. Blasphemy then is self-destructive, not God-destructive. It means that you are willing not to know yourself in order to be sick. This is the offering your God demands because, having made him out of your insanity, he is an insane idea. He has many forms, but although he may seem to be many different things, he is but one idea, the denial of God. that first sentence is pretty much says it all. Allegiance to the denial of God is the ego's religion.
Mm-hmm.
It's code.
Yeah.
I think 5 is really powerful as well. Blasphemy then is self-destructive, not God-destructive.
Yeah. And
Because we can't
blasphemy.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Jen.
Blasphemy is any form of the denial of God. So any form of sickness, any irritation, it's like when I'm in irritation at another person or at my own body, paying attention to the whatever it is that's going on with my body, my sickness, my finances, whatever, my relationships. When I'm paying attention to what isn't working, I'm not paying attention to God. And that's blasphemy.
And like Kathy said, you're denying also that you're projecting this out.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I think back still in sentence 5 that we can't destroy God.
Yeah, no.
So it's kind of, we kind of miss the point in terms of what we would traditionally think of blasphemy. We can't hurt God, but we can hurt ourselves in terms of, we never hurt our true selves, but we can certainly delay, getting back to our true self and experiencing that. And that's how it's destructive to our small self, or self with a small s.
Yeah, our identification. Like,
Yeah.
Who am I? Who do I think I am? I think I'm a sick body. I think I'm somebody who's being picked on. I think I'm a victim of, name it. There's that's what it says. Seem to be many different things, but it's just one idea. So this is just like the opposite of, there's no order of difficulty in miracles. There's no order of difficulty in miracles, and there's no order of difficulty in the ego's world. So if I'm really upset because I have a cold sore and I pay all my attention on my cold sore and that's all I think about, and I'm denying God, right? Because I can't be in love and be in pain.
And I like Laura's point, because it can make sense to us from the ego standpoint that I'm sick, I'm awful, I'm all these things. But when you realize you're really saying that of God, then you can begin to say it doesn't make sense.
That's cool.
No.
Yeah. That's great.
I like sentence 4, unless you are sick, you cannot keep the gods you made, because you're absolute, when you're sick or suffering or something, you're in such a different frame of mind and you have different gods. You really do.
Yeah. And until we train our minds with something like the Course, we don't realize that we're going back and forth from 2 different identifications of who we think we are. This is a big part of the mind training. Is to recognize when we are making up something that's painful, and that's not who we are. We have a choice. Anything else stand out for you, for anybody in that 3rd paragraph? Well, then let's have Dale read it's Eric's turn.
Sickness and death seemed to enter the mind of God's Son against his will. The attack on God made his Son think he was fatherless. And out of his depression, he made the God of depression. This was his alternative to joy, because he would not accept the fact that although he was a creator, he had been created. Yet the Son is helpless without the Father, who alone is his help. I'm struck by that where it says he wouldn't accept the fact that although he was a creator, he had been created. It's almost like
Yeah.
we've got this sense that we are a creator because we are part of God, of course, and yet we won't accept that we are part of the overall creator. So there's this determination to be separate and to create something for ourselves, which you can't do, of course. We can only make things that aren't real. But yeah.
Yeah, without God, we're just making stuff that's going to fall apart, doesn't last. But he has been talking a lot about our creations, and that can only be something of love. He also says we can't understand what they are from this standpoint. So we can just kind of let it, I have to just let it go. I have to just think of my creations are my loving thoughts. I don't know anything more about it than that. Maybe some of you have more insight on that.
I was wondering if that, although he was a creator, he had created, if that's the authority problem, that he had been created, because we think that, we're in charge of that stuff.
Yeah. I made myself by virtue of my education or my background or my accomplishments. I made myself.
He actually says that later on, that that you believe, this is one mistake, that you believe the world you made is real, is also the belief that I don't have a source in God. Is the same mistake, because that's how we're really denying God, is by believing what we made up is real.
The whole physical world.
Yeah, well, the whole thought system of the ego.
Yep.
If that seems real, right, we're denying that we were created by God.
Yep. Anything else on that one? I think we hit on it with that authority problem issue. Let's see, now it's Dale's turn for 5, please.
Okay. I said before that of yourself you can do nothing, but you are not of yourself. If you were, what you have made would be true, and you could never escape. It is because you did not make yourself that you need be troubled over nothing. Your gods are nothing because your Father did not create them. I think the thing I get out of this, and as I go about my day, is when I look out on the world, I'm kind of trying to train my mind that it appears real, but it's really not.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing is not really true, but at the same time, you're bombarded with stuff that sure seems true.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I have to really discipline myself to just go back to the basics of, I don't feel good. I'm sense of separation. I forgive myself and I forgive those that are doing that. And it seems to correct my vision.
Great.
Quickly, rather than struggling with it for a long time. Just be aware and make a decision in that moment. And that sounds like a simple thing to do, but when I'm in my great sense of self-pity and they're out to get me, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I want to be miserable because I'm entitled,
Right.
Yeah.
We're all laughing because we all do the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. You cannot make creators who are unlike your creator any more than he could have created a son who is unlike him. If creation is sharing, it cannot create what is unlike itself. It can share only what is. Depression is isolation, and so it could not have been created. Well, there's a lot there. To me, it's just coming to a real sense of who we are. And the way during my day, I was at the gym this morning, and as I was doing my workout, as I walked around, I looked at other people and affirmed who they are, who they really are, not what's appearing to me. And the more I do that, the more I move into a sense of well-being and a lightness rather than struggling with things. So it's more of me giving than just affirming me, because I know in years past, even though I've affirmed this, I wasn't including anybody else in that. It was just, I'm a creation of God, which is fine. It's a good start, but it's more than that. I've come to understand it's affirming that in everybody you see, regardless of what the appearance is.
Exactly.
If it's somebody I had a situation the other day, somebody was hateful for no reason. I didn't even know them. And, before I would have reacted differently, might say, but, I didn't. I said, okay, and just affirmed and forgave them and moved on. So it's always a conscious choice that we can make, but training ourselves to make it seems to be the hard part. It is for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really appreciate what you said about extending the truth to other people. That breaks us out of the isolation as well.
See, and that's interesting too, because what you had said, when I start feeling it's when the pain comes up
Mm-hmm.
and the dissatisfaction comes up, that's the time when we're more willing to make a turnaround. Like we can go on and everything seems real and seems just normal and whatever. And then when we become upset and have a problem, that's when we can make real progress, rather than thinking, oh, it's just normal to be depressed, or it's just normal to be sad or whatever. It's like at that moment, because I'm in pain, I can be motivated. I don't like this.
Yeah.
I want to see it differently. So
Yeah.
rather than it being a problem, it becomes an opportunity to make a big change.
Right. As we train ourselves.
Yeah.
What you're describing is like a mini version of hitting bottom.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, but now we know we don't have to get into the total depths of human suffering in order to turn around. We can have just a little bit of pain or a little bit of sickness or discomfort or anger and say,
Yeah.
that's not the truth.
Yeah.
I'm making this up. Let me not deny God in my brother or in myself. Let me turn to the truth of who we are.
Yeah. That's why in the workbook, response to temptation is such an important movement, because your mind is so focused on the pain and on the suffering. You can take that concentration and put it on something to love, something to appreciate.
Right. Deny our own authority. Yeah. Or ego's authority, I should say. So is there anything else in 5 that you want to talk about?
I was just going to say this paragraph, as I was listening to Dale reading it and reading along, in the course, it's like a paragraph reminds me of something from the lesson and the whole mind training thing. And in this paragraph, it's, I'm a body. I'm not a body. I am free. I'm God created me. And that applies to everyone. And yeah, so that's what I got out of this paragraph. Remember that. Grab onto that ring.
Yeah, I think that's this whole section. Yeah.
I like line 3. It says, it's because you did not make yourself that you need to be troubled over nothing. Anything you make, it's nothing. My goodness.
Ego doesn't want to
Really
hear
good
that.
at making stuff up, huh?
Yes. Oh, it's excellent. Yeah. Even though we know it's going to hurt us.
Right. We want to suffer.
A good fight.
Yeah. We probably have all gone through phases where we're addicted to a drama, right? The story has really got us caught up and it's painful. But because we've got a story going, we've got to keep it going and justify those thoughts and make more of it. And it's like, we have to just turn off the TV, if you know what I mean, the mental TV.
That in today's lesson in the review, I'm never upset for the reason I think. It's saying in there that it's a whole thought system.
Right.
It's not just this circumstance or just this situation or just this particular personality attribute. It's a whole thought system of the egos that's there that we need to deny.
Yeah.
Yep.
In that lesson, it was talking about how we spend so much time in our judgments, and then the rest of the time, our thoughts are justifying the judgments we made.
Yep. That's
Yep.
it.
It's
Yeah.
like,
Look what they did.
And you know, we're gonna get to more that relates to that, where it says, don't look to the God of sickness for healing, but that's later. Let's do 6, and that would be Eric's turn. Is it? See, I always get mixed up about this stuff.
Yeah,
Whose
I
turn
don't
is
think
it?
it's me, but it doesn't matter, does it? It's what
Not
sequence it is.
really, not
No.
really. Hell.
I can do 6.
Okay.
Son of God, you have not sinned, but you have been much mistaken. Yet this can be corrected, and God will help you, knowing that you could not sin against him. You denied him because you loved him, knowing that if you recognized your love for him, you could not deny him. Your denial of him, therefore, means that you love him and that you know he loves you. Remember that what you deny, you must have once known. And if you accept denial, you cannot accept its undoing. You can accept its undoing. This sort of reminds me of my own experience, actually, of leaving the church I grew up in and becoming an atheist for like 10, 15 years. But not just becoming someone who said, oh, there's no God, but joining sort of an anti-theist group that was sort of like criticizing people who did believe in God. And how I see it now is that it was because I still believed in God, really, that I had to deny him. Because if I'd just been saying, ignoring the idea of God, that would have been different. But the fact that I was denying God very vociferously meant that I must still believe him.
That's really a good point.
So it's quite ironic, really. And this is what this is saying, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've denied him because you loved him, and you don't want to recognize your love for him. But really, you still love him.
Yeah.
And all I can think of is God was saying, oh, isn't he adorable? You know, all along.
I mean, to me, this is how the Course is so loving. Not just because it shows us loving things. It takes the very thing that we would think is real blasphemy, denial of God, and reinterprets it that we love him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a complete opposite.
Yeah.
If you're not ignoring God, then you must love him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just absolutely so beautiful.
It is.
So next time we screw up, we go, that's because I love God.
Yeah. Okay, now I see what I did. So Connie, would you read 7, please?
Your father has not denied you. He does not retaliate, but he does call to you to return. When you think he has not answered your call, you have not answered his. He calls to you from every part of the sonship because of his love for his son. If you hear his message, he has answered you, and you will learn of him if you hear aright. The love of God is in everything he created, for his son is everywhere. Look with peace upon your brothers, and God will come rushing into your heart with ingratitude for your gift to him. It's a call for love.
Yeah.
Reminding us that no matter what it's the other person is saying or doing, it's a call for love, and God is there. God is in the other person.
Yeah, I love that line 6. The love of God is in everything he created. Everything. Human and non-human.
And I like for his son is everywhere.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Is that, I mean, how could one not feel joy and love knowing that God's son, God is everywhere
Yeah,
in every son, which is people, animals, everything.
yeah.
Yep.
Kathy, would you read 8, please?
Sure. Do not look to the God of sickness for healing, but only to the God of love. For healing is the acknowledgement of him. When you acknowledge him, you will know that he has never ceased to acknowledge you, and that his acknowledgement of you lies in your being. So I already got what his acknowledgement is going to trigger in me. You are not sick and you cannot die, but you can confuse yourself with the things that do. Remember, though, that to do this is blasphemy. There it is again. For it creates that you are looking without love on God and his creation, from which he cannot be separate. So another definition of blasphemy is that when you're looking without love on God and his creations,
Mhm.
from which he cannot be separated. God cannot be separated from us. And so it's blasphemy to put down anything that's got God in it.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's calling for a full appreciation of God everywhere, in everything. And sickness has to disappear. Because sickness is a denial of God.
Yeah, 3 and 4 is pretty much indicating that we're identifying with the body.
Yes,
Mhm.
you are not sick and you cannot die, but you can confuse yourself with things that do. Yeah. Anything else on that paragraph?
So I was wondering, you know how when you're trying to meditate and you're trying to get past all the shrieks and bubbles, the things that are going on, it's like if I could look on everything with love, that would help bring me back to that state too, going past all the, yeah. And then things that I can't love, if I accept them, that's the first stage of love. Isn't that, I
Yep.
can,
Yeah,
I accept it. I'm not pushing it away. I just am accepting it.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's my experience.
Okay.
Yeah. When you accept, you've got a sense of peace about it, and love will arise automatically.
So Jan, I've got a question about that first sentence. What does it mean to look on the God of sickness for healing? Does that mean that we take these little things of the body as looking? What does that mean, to look on the God of sickness for healing?
Well, I can just tell you what I think it means. And there's probably a lot of different iterations of that. I think it means, so the God of sickness is the belief that the physical world is making me feel or do something
Okay, so fixing something
on the physical.
on the physical or the body
Well,
instead of healing the mind.
yeah,
Is that it?
I think so. I think don't look to the God of sickness. So the God of sickness lives in the physical world, the world that seems, the whole thing is imaginary, of course. The God of sickness is imaginary.
Yeah.
But it's as if the physical world is where causality is. So looking to the God of sickness is to look to physical things to fix you, which it tells us earlier is not a sin. It's just not going to fix you, because the problem is separation, and the problem is
Right.
not being with God.
That's right, because he said the sickness is really the belief that the mind can be sick. So if you heal the mind, then the body's natural health will be there.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
that's how it works, sure.
What that reminds me of is when I look at at nature, a tree, for example, I don't say, oh, well, that branch is off, that's off. The tree is beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then when I look at a person, I don't do the same thing. I
Right.
focus on, well, they're this or they're that.
Right.
And
Mhm.
that shows it's all in my mind, you
Yeah,
know?
right.
Yeah, right on.
And that you have the capacity to not judge people.
Right.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have the capacity to see God in everything and
Yeah.
everyone, you know, but it just struck me. I'm looking outside, I'm thinking, I never have those thoughts when I look at
Mhm.
Yeah.
landscape or with the mountains or whatever, you know?
Right. Right. We know they're perfect.
Yeah, all their irregularities are perfect, but in humans,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right on.
Good.
Vicky, yeah. That's why hiking's so much fun, because you're not looking at the landscape and going, you need to deadhead that. That shouldn't be there. You know, you're just appreciating it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Laura,
Right.
would you read 9, please? Give us your thoughts.
Only the eternal can be loved, for love does not die. What is of God is his forever, and you are of God. Would he allow himself to suffer? And would he offer his son anything that is not acceptable to him? If you will accept yourself as God created you, you will be incapable of suffering. Yet to do this, you must acknowledge him as your creator. This is not because you will be punished otherwise. It is merely because your acknowledgement of your Father is the acknowledgement of yourself as you are. Your Father created you wholly without sin, wholly without pain, and wholly without suffering of any kind. If you deny him, you bring sin, pain, and suffering into your own mind because of the power he gave it. Your mind is capable of creating worlds, but it can also deny what it creates because it is free. Yeah. So it's just kind of reinforcing where the idea we stand in the truth of who we are, we cannot suffer.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it seems like we need to acknowledge that God created us as himself in order to understand who we are.
Right.
So I think it's trying to make a point. This is not about I'm trying to think how you would say it in organized religion, but it's not like for his ego, like for his own, like, oh, we're worshiping you, you know what I mean? It's more of, recognize that I've made you so you know that you are of me, and you are
Right.
the same.
Right.
Which is a big difference, right? In the way most of us were taught. And as long as we continue to deny him and think that we are a body, we will have the illusion of sin, pain, and suffering.
Mm-hmm. Thank God for this mind training.
Yeah. But
Good.
11, I guess this is what you mentioned earlier about, we don't really understand our creations.
Uh-huh.
But it says your mind is capable of creating worlds. So creating love, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's also free to deny what it creates, our mind.
Yeah. It's worth thinking about why we would do this. What are the payoffs for suffering? What do we get out of it? There's got to be a payoff or we wouldn't do it.
Well, he's pretty clear that our pains that we are bringing to ourselves
Yes.
is still a continuation of replacing God, because we believe by replacing God, God is going to punish us. And since we're still trying to replace him, we punish ourselves.
Right.
That's why we do it.
Right.
We think it's a price we have to pay.
Right.
That's why it's so important to see the train of thinking from 5. If you will accept yourself as God created, you'll be incapable of suffering. Yet to do this, you must acknowledge him as your creator. But this is not because you will be punished otherwise.
Right.
See, that's the belief. I've denied God. Now God's mad at me. Now God's going to punish me.
Yeah.
And that's just this train of insane thinking.
Right.
But it's because I'm so powerful
Right.
that sickness and suffering will come in. Not because God's mad at me and will punish me.
Right.
It's because my mind is so powerful.
Mhm.
But then again, that fact can be turned around to a good thing.
Right. Right.
Instead of I'm doing this to myself. I mean, if we just stop with I'm doing this to myself, I'm making it up, then we've actually taken a step backwards, of course, and saying we got to make that next step. That if I'm doing it to myself, then I can take the step to undo this.
Exactly.
I'm free.
Right.
That's why I'm not about it. That's why he's always asserting the freedom of mind.
Uh-huh.
Because if I'm doing it to myself, then I must have the power
Right.
to start the process of undoing,
Right.
which paradoxically includes God's grace.
Mhm.
Right? But I have to start it. I have to do it.
Be willing.
Be willing.
Little willingness. Yeah.
Yeah, Timothy, what you just said and sentence and 11, it connects with, you know, how I'm always saying about the brain. This is basically saying that it's my body that's creating a lot of this stuff, and my mind has the power over my body.
Yeah.
If I'm in my right mind, and I can create, I can be free of the world I create.
Yep.
The world you made.
Choose to.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
The first line, only the eternal can be loved, for love does not die.
Mhm.
You asked a question earlier, John, of what's a loving thought? So maybe that's the answer.
What was the
Well,
question?
The question was, what is a loving thought?
A loving thought. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or what is creation? Yeah.
yeah. So if love is eternal, then a loving thought is something that relates to the eternal, isn't it?
Right.
And that doesn't mean we can't look at some person and love them, because we can see the eternal, we can see God in them, can't we?
Right.
Not through the physical appearance or even maybe the character traits aren't maybe they're not going to be eternal either, are they? But that spark of that tiny spark, or maybe an even bigger light in them, we can see.
Yeah.
That's a really great point. And in relation to that, it means those loving thoughts are always there.
Yeah, that's right. And remember from the very beginning, only what is eternal is real. That's the only thing that's real. So we focus on what's real by that definition, we will escape the part of the mind that wants to hurt us through the body.
So Eric, based on what you're saying, if I do see some goodness in them, that's the eternal thing.
Yeah, even if it's not about taking out the garbage.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. Kindness.
or reflecting it.
I mean, just the fact that they're yearning for happiness, even doing it, through murder or something. That is a spark that we can see in another person. They're crying out for happiness.
Yeah. So,
They just have.
did I understand what you
bad
said,
ways
Eric?
to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really a fully formed thought, really. I mean, it's what is eternal in a person? Is the, as you're saying, a kindness that they perform? Can we look at that and see that as eternal? I don't know, really. Not really got an answer to that, but I mean, definitely, if we can look at someone and see an aspect of God in them in some way, and maybe if we say God is kindness, then maybe that's the case. I don't know.
So it sort of points to something eternal.
Yeah, and maybe it's not something that we can express in words anyway, is it? So the eternal isn't something we can form words to describe anyway.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're up on paragraph 10, Eric.
Okay. You do not realize how much you have denied yourself and how much God in his love would not have it so. Yet he would not interfere with you because he would not know his son if you were not free. Wow. So he has to leave us to come to our own senses in a manner of speaking.
Yeah.
Because he is never going to force us to return to him.
Yeah.
To interfere with you will be to attack himself. And God is not insane. When you deny him, you are insane. Would you have him share your insanity? God will never cease to love his son, and his son will never cease to love him. Love that. Regardless of what the form and the illusions are, God loves us and we love God. End of. That was the condition of his son's creation, fixed forever in the mind of God. To know that is sanity. To deny it is insanity. God gave himself to you in your creation, and his gifts are eternal. Would you deny yourself to him? So you can't do anything wrong. Whatever problems you're making up and insistence that you're separate from God, it has no effect because it's not possible to be anything other than with God.
Yeah. So that to me, this is really important about the process of learning. In sentence 2, yet he would not interfere with you because he would not know his son is free.
If he were not free.
If he were not free. So I'm convinced that this is set up. If we're to remember our true power, this is set up whereby we have to make the first move. We have to see our dissatisfaction with the way that we're thinking and become willing to not want that.
Right.
And that's what we need. Like that first lesson on I'm attacking myself in those first 50, it says you have to realize you're doing this to yourself.
Right.
That's the first step. And then you have to not want it.
Uh-huh.
And then understand that your thoughts have already been replaced. So I think this ability to free ourselves is how he's beginning to teach us we are free.
Right.
And that we are a creation of God.
Right.
It's because otherwise, like in that lesson in the part 2 where it talks about what is sin, we're always saying, how long, oh God, before these problems go away.
Yeah.
How long? And he's saying to us, how long are you going to keep in misery?
Yeah, right.
You've got to free yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's how get us in touch with our real power, to be able to appreciate and love.
And so this is the power of healing that he's been talking about this entire chapter, called the Idols of Sickness. He's trying to get us in touch with our miracle working abilities. If we have the power of creating worlds, and he's been telling us over and over, see the spark of God in your brother, and that is the healing.
Yeah.
See it in yourself. Don't deny it in yourself. Sometimes I think that when it says yourself, like in the first sentence in 10 and the last sentence, if English were different and yourself were not one word, it might be your capital S self. You do not realize how much you have denied your true self.
But really, I think he's saying, just as you are now, you can free yourself.
Yes.
You don't have to wait till you're back
No,
into
that's
your
right.
true self.
No, that's right. But we've denied it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, Dale. Go ahead. I was just going to ask a question about free will. And I was just thinking about something that I heard someone else talking about, one of the teachers. And I think, if I understand it correctly, I think the only freedom we have in the will is how long are we going to take to get back? Because everything else, it's either real or not real. If it's not real, it's not about your will. And the course says that right in the beginning. It's this is a required course. It's only the amount of time it's going to take.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
So the freedom is just like today or a million years from now. Like that's
Right.
the only free will that we have, right?
Yeah.
Because it's inevitable. It's already happened. Actually, we just don't know that.
Sooner or later, there's a limit. It says there's a limit to suffering, and sooner or later, we'll make a decision to give it up.
And I mean, I can see that in very mundane situations where somebody's did something that offends me or says something to me that's offensive, and I realize I'm making it up. I'm just doing this myself, but I can see I'm going to hang on to that, and that's when I have to say, how long do you want to keep hanging on?
How long do you want to suffer?
Yeah.
Yeah. Dale, you had a thought.
Yeah, I'm glad Laura went first because she said it better than I did. But I think there's a point, it's been a point with me where I have to go past just knowing something and having some knowledge of it, that I go into, I believe it.
Yeah.
When I believe it,
Right.
I found that I advance very quickly or more quickly, rather than always discussing and having an understanding of it. In anything, believing transitions you into a higher level of action or understanding. Except it doesn't have to be this, it can be anything. So I just thought I'd throw out there, to me, I've gotten to the point where I believe this to be true.
Right.
And it seems to help.
Yeah.
So that, I'm really glad you brought that up, because he covers this later on, like in chapter 25. But here's the cognitive train with respect to what you're saying, is first, it's what we value. We have the ability to value things. And he said, whatever we value, we will believe in, and what we believe in, we'll have faith in. What we believe in, have faith in, we will desire. And what we desire, we will see. And what we see, we'll experience. And what we experience will validate what we value.
So it's a full circle.
That's why changing what we value will change all the rest of it.
Okay. So
You forgot.
I think it's Eric's turn again.
No.
I think it is.
He just read.
Didn't Laura read that one?
I'll read every paragraph if you like, John.
Okay. I got to put little stickers on the squares, so that I can tell the order that I went in that time.
I think it's my turn.
Oh,
It
thank you.
must be
Thank
Dale's
you.
turn, yeah.
What are we on? We're on 11.
11.
Okay. Out of your gifts to him, the kingdom will be restored to his son. His son removed himself from his gift by refusing to accept what had been created for him and what he had created in the name of his father. Again, what we just talked about a minute ago, I think that's important in this situation of transitioning to belief, putting value, as Timothy said, on this and actually believing it. Heaven waits for his return, for it was created as a dwelling place of God's Son. You are not at home anywhere else or in any other condition. Do not deny yourself the joy that was created for you, for the misery you have made for yourself. God, that's true. God has given you the means for undoing what you have made. Listen, and you will learn how to remember what you are. Well, there's a lot there. All these paragraphs have a lot in them. I'll just, for myself, I've just gone to where I'm trying not to struggle with so much with understanding and just going back to the principles, the basic fundamentals of forgiving myself and forgiving others and extending love. And I think that's what they're saying here. If when I do those things, I just do better. And then add into it the element of believing, actually giving value to this, that it's very important in my life. It is the most important thing in my life. of seeing the world in this way and putting in the power of belief with it.
Great, great. Anyone else?
That last sentence is really important of how we make the turnaround. Listen.
Yeah,
Listen to what you're saying to yourself.
right.
Listen to what you believe.
Yeah,
Listen to what God's telling you.
yeah,
And that's where you'll be motivated to change.
yeah. So the first thing you said was listen to what you're telling yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. Am I telling myself a story that's making me feel bad?
Yeah.
So it's be vigilant, being vigilant.
Yeah.
Only for God and his kingdom.
You're denying yourself the joy
Yeah,
for staying in the misery. Listen to yourself.
that's dumb.
But also listen to the Holy Spirit who's trying to tell you otherwise.
I know.
Yeah.
I know that. I know that's
Absolutely.
really what's going on. Yeah.
I was reading in chapter 14 this morning, the Happy Learner, and it says, the Holy Spirit says, with steadfast quietness.
Yeah.
So the Holy Spirit's never going to shout at you, is it? It's never going to start bashing you to try and take notice of what he's saying. It's going to be constant, deliberate quietness. So we're going to have to listen, otherwise we're never going to hear it.
Right, right.
Holy Spirit is only, his voice is only as loud as your willingness to listen.
Yeah, is that great?
By my sing.
That's great. Connie, do you want to read 12?
Or if God knows his children as wholly sinless, it is blasphemous to perceive them as guilty. If God knows his children as wholly without pain, it is blasphemous to perceive suffering anywhere. If God knows his children to be wholly joyous, it is blasphemy to feel depressed. All of these illusions and the many other forms that blasphemy may take are refusals to accept creation as it is. I like that. Where is it? The illusions, all of these illusions and the many other forms that blasphemy may take. So illusions are really, besides being a denial of God or attack on God, they're just blasphemy. That's
The same thing. Yeah.
yeah. It seems stronger though.
Oh, the word seems so strong.
Yeah.
When I read that, I had to say, every time it said blasphemous, I had to say the denial of God, because blasphemy is like, what?
You know what? I think I like it though better. It kind of jolts my brain more.
Okay, good.
Like, what are you, stupid? You know, you have this illusion. I can just say, oh, it's just an illusion. But when I say, oh, it's blasphemy, it's like stronger.
It sure is.
My ego needs that. If God created his son perfect, that is how you must learn to see him, to learn of his reality. And as part of the sonship, that is how you must see yourself, to learn of yours. It's all this thing of, why do I see myself or other humans as imperfect or having faults or something wrong, when I don't see that out in nature. I'm really, for me, that's been the big takeaway.
Yeah.
Changing my mind, seeing things as they really are and not as my ego pops up and says they are.
Right.
I really like, Connie, you appreciating the force of blasphemy, because we tend to think if I'm a little bit sad, that's no big deal.
Yeah, right.
Or if I got a little owie somewhere, that's no big deal.
A little owie that I pay attention to constantly.
Yeah, or whatever. We tend to think we dismiss that, but he's trying to get us to see how big that dismissal is.
It's just the same thing as how he says, a little irritation is the same thing as What's the term?
Rage.
Intense rage,
That's rage.
right? It's the same thing.
You
There's
know,
only two thought systems.
yeah, and that really works with depression, because depression is really this accumulation of feelings, like a little bit of feelings, a little bit of feelings, until finally you're
Mhm.
depressed.
Right.
That's why it's so graceful to catch these little things,
Yes, it is.
where we're willing to make a change with that little thing. And so it doesn't build up,
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
till we open the closet where we threw all that stuff, and it's just full of,
Knocks you over.
full of stuff.
I think that sentence 5 and 6 is like, maybe it's the whole course. If God created his son perfect, that is how you must learn to see him, to learn of his reality. And as part of the sonship, that is how you must see yourself, to learn of your reality.
Yeah.
That's all wound up right there.
And, perfect has a different meaning in reality as opposed here, because
Yeah.
perfect here means whole. It
Mhm.
means no parts of mine are
Mhm.
denied. Everything is working together.
Okay.
Wholeness can be
Mhm.
seen as perfection.
Mhm.
So I was married to a minister for a while. So allow me to read a couple of these sentences. Oh Lord, let you smite my blasphemy when I perceive suffering anywhere. And let you smite my blasphemy when I feel depressed. How's that?
Mm.
Okay, what works for you?
It works for me.
Okay, Kathy, do you want to read 13?
Sure. Do not perceive anything do not perceive anything God did not create, or you are denying him. His is the only fatherhood, and it is yours only because he has given it to you. Your gifts to yourself are meaningless, but your gifts to your creation are like his, because they are given in his name. That is why your creations are as real as his. Yet the real fatherhood must be acknowledged if the real son is to be known. You believe that the sick things you have made are your real creations, because you believe that the sick images you perceive are the sons of God. Only if you accept the fatherhood of God will you have anything, because his fatherhood gave you everything. That is why to deny him is to deny yourself. Your gifts to yourself are meaningless, but your gifts to your creations are like his. Could you give me an example of that?
Well, I think your gifts to yourself are meaningless. It's like, I deserve something nice. I'm going to go shopping. That would be a gift to myself. I'm sure he means gifts to my ego, gifts to my body, gifts to my self-concept, false self-concept.
Or I just lost $100 in the stock market. Of course, I'm going to be sad.
And that would be a gift to yourself, to your
Any
false
kind of
self.
loss,
That's true.
any kind of loss
That's true.
is a gift to this
Gift to
of-
the ego.
Yeah, gift to the ego.
That's really good. But your gifts to your creations would have to be the recognition of love.
So when you're blessing things and
Yeah.
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 It's really reinforcing what Dale was saying about belief. Like
Uh-huh.
this,
Mhm.
these are big ideas in your mind, these sick images. You really believe them. You believe that the sick things you have made are your real creations.
The whole world, well, the media, the mainstream media is all about reinforcing this belief in pain.
Mhm.
So, just be careful when you believe it, when you go into agreement with it.
Yeah.
What are you giving me that look for?
It's meant to have an informed citizenry too. So
This
That's just a
is
little different.
informing the citizenry, if you
yeah,
ask
we
me.
don't have the same belief.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
whatever.
Okay. So, and that's all right. So anything more about paragraph 13? Well, let's go on to the wrap up of this chapter. That would be Laura.
Arrogance is the denial of love because love shares and arrogance withholds. As long as both appear to you to be desirable, the concept of choice, which is not of God, will remain with you. While this is not true in eternity, it is true in time, so that while time lasts in your mind, there will be choices. Time itself is your choice. If you would remember eternity, you must look only on the eternal. If you allow yourself to become preoccupied with the temporal, you are living in time. As always, your choice is determined by what you value. Time and eternity cannot both be real because they contradict each other. If you will accept only what is timeless as real, you will begin to understand eternity and make it yours. Well, that's interesting, starting with sentence 2 on this concept of choice and the discussion we were having about free will, which again is, well, yeah, you don't really, the only, I'm trying to, where's that sentence? Time itself is your choice. And as long as you become or stay preoccupied with the illusory world, you're living in time.
Yeah.
I guess time and eternity, just like illusion and truth, are just two thought systems, and you can only choose one. And
Right.
We're insane because we're trying to do both. We're trying to live. I believe in the eternal, but I believe in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's saying, just like Einstein made time and space one variable, because we believe in time, we believe there's a space between us and others.
That's what it says in one of the chapters
Yeah.
later on, which I never really got.
Immediacy of salvation, right?
Mhm.
But if we believe in time, we're believing in a succession of events
Mhm.
in space.
Mhm.
And so because we believe in time, we're going to believe in space in a way that makes me think I'm separate from you.
Yeah. Yeah. But the dichotomy here is time and eternity.
Yeah.
So it's saying, look for the eternal in that person.
Right.
You know, when you look at a brand new baby, they have no history. And so you're looking at the eternal in them. I think that's why people are so blown away by tiny babies. When they make eye contact with you, it's like you're looking into the infinite. And if we could just see that in each other, we're remembering God, and we're remembering who we are, the seer as well as the seen.
Remember that picture that you had of the baby in the high chair that's sharing its ice cream cone?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
natural to share
Yeah,
in innocence. We
I
want to
know
share.
it is. No sense of loss.
So I just want to make out one point about 13:5, which is really key about this idea. I've got to acknowledge my source, which you can call God or you can call love.
Mhm.
I have to acknowledge that love is my source to know who I am.
Right.
If your real fatherhood must be acknowledged, if the real son is to be known.
So this is all about our identity, isn't it? Finding it by acknowledging God and by acknowledging God in each other. Well, thank you so much for studying with us. It makes it so much richer to be with you.
Yeah.